Hello everybody, thanks for joining me in this webinar today. My name is Dr. Brandon Manning, and what I wanted to do is just take a few minutes and give you a brief overview of functional food testing and how it all works. And hopefully I'm going to be able to answer the question of, should I be food tested? So in other words, maybe you're struggling with a specific health condition. Maybe it's thyroid issues, maybe a digestive problem, or chronic fatigue, or even weight loss resistance. So we're going to cover some specific conditions and how food testing could potentially help you. By the way, we're going to cover a lot of information. We're going to go over a lot of specifics during this webinar, so it's not a bad idea to hit pause right now and go grab a pen and paper and just take some notes. Okay. Now, real quick, who am I? Again, my name is Dr. Brandon Mann. I'm the Clinic Director of Natural Health Solutions in Apple Valley, Minnesota. I've been in private practice since 2004, and I have over 400 hours of postgraduate training in clinical nutrition and functional medicine. And over the past 10 years, I've had the privilege of putting thousands of patients through food testing programs, not only locally, but nationally as well. So, but this webinar is not about me, it's going to be about you. So let's just keep going. Now let's talk about food testing and how it all works. It's done through a simple finger prick. So it's a simple blood test. And what we're doing is we're testing 96 different foods to see how your body reacts. So just a quick story, when my son was born, he had terrible eczema, really bad skin, and he would scratch until he would bleed. He had a really tough time sleeping the whole 9 yards. And when he'd have formula, he would vomit right away. He would projectile vomit. His eyes would roll back in his head. It just wasn't good. Well, I was more of a natural doctor, and so generally the first route we take is going the more natural route. So we took him to 3 different chiropractors who did AK, which is also known as applied kinesiology, where they do the muscle testing. They find out what foods you should be eliminating. And we took him to 3 different chiros. We got 3 different opinions. So one said get rid of gluten, and the other was corn and sugar. And so between the 3 doctors, we got 3 different stories, and none of them worked. Well, of course, we tried the dermatologist, and of course, they would just throw steroids at it. Finally, we took him to an allergy clinic, which is out of state, and they did a blood test. And the blood test showed peanuts, eggs, and dairy. Well, what's in formula? Eggs and dairy. So we put him on a formula that had no allergens, and the skin cleared up, the vomiting went away, and he's been fine ever since. But again, it took a blood test to determine peanuts, eggs, and dairy. And this is why we blood test in our office. So when we're talking functional food testing, we're not talking muscle testing. We're not talking any fancy hand scanning equipment. We're talking a third-party lab that does the analysis, and it's going to give us a full color report on the 96 different foods that we're testing and how mild or how severe that you react to each food. That makes sense? Now let's get a little bit more specific. We're actually testing the IgG portion of your immune system. So we're not checking the IgE portion of your immune system. So here's the difference. IgE is that immediate response or that immediate reaction. So in other words, let's say I have shrimp and my throat closes shut. Or maybe I eat peanuts and I get an immediate rash. This is that immediate response. This is not what we're testing. Okay? So these people, they generally know what they're sensitive to. Oftentimes they carry an EpiPen, just in case. So what we're testing for, we're testing the IgG portion, which is that delayed immune response, that 10 to 12 hour response where maybe you get a migraine headache and you don't know why. Or it's a 10 to 12 hours is just too long of a time period to figure out what the culprit might be. You cannot do an elimination diet. You can't do any sort of food journaling to figure out what it is. That makes sense? So again, we're testing that delayed immune response, which could be causing a downward spiral in your overall health, versus that immediate allergic reaction. And this sort of ties into the difference between a food allergy and a sensitivity. Basically, we're testing for sensitivities and intolerances and not so much the immediate allergy. Okay, there's a big difference. Now, who should be tested? And how do you know if you should be tested or not? Well, it's been estimated that over 90% of health conditions are food related. Now, granted, a lot of these could be poor food choices, eating at McDonald's every week or sipping on Diet Coke all day at work. Maybe it's pizza night, which becomes every other night type thing, So, this does play a role. However, everybody reacts to food differently. And this is why in our office we test patients. Believe it or not, some people react to apples. Some people it's spinach, almonds. garlic. I mean, you name it, we've seen people react to it. And so from there, then we eliminate it. Now, here's just a few conditions where food testing really should be the diagnostic test number one. I mean, right off the bat, let's test, let's customize your food list, and give your body the chance to heal and regenerate. Okay, so obviously, digestive distress, irritable bowel or IBS is very common these days. Migraine headaches, thyroid challenges, most commonly hypothyroid. Now let's talk about thyroid real quick because it's a big problem for a lot of people. So remember, thyroid essentially regulates your metabolism. So the people with low thyroid, they tend to struggle with weight loss or weight gain, hair loss, fatigue, brittle nails, this kind of stuff. Now it's been estimated that 70% of thyroid problems are autoimmune. It's actually a condition called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and so most of the time, low thyroid isn't even a thyroid issue. It's your immune system that's attacking your thyroid. Now, your medical doctor, they're going to check your TSH, your T3, T4, and all these thyroid markers. But what's their treatment? Their treatment is Synthroid or levothyroxine. So it's basically synthetic drugs. Now, don't you think that, if 70% of thyroid problems are autoimmune, don't you think they should look at your immune system? Wouldn't it make sense to food test and see how your body reacts to food, and then maybe eliminate the problem foods, giving your body the ability to heal and rest and regenerate before going on medications which you'll likely be on forever? Now, why don't they test? Well, the treatment plan doesn't change for them, right? It's Synthroid or levothyroxine. So why test? Why test to get to the underlying cause, fixing and eliminating the cause, when their treatment plan doesn't change? So, thyroid in this country is really poorly managed, but I would always start with a food test first. Poor energy, chronic fatigue, weight loss or weight loss resistance. We have a weight loss program that incorporates functional food testing into it. It's remarkable. Some people, they tried all these different programs and plans and fad diets and exercise programs, yet nothing works. Well, you're probably eating the wrong foods. You're eating the foods your body hates. And this dries up and spikes up inflammation, leads to a downward spiral in your overall health. Autoimmune conditions, such as lupus and MS and rheumatoid arthritis. Infertility, that's another one. It's very common these days. We see a lot of it. Kids with ADHD, autism. Now, these are just a few. Obviously there's a lot more, but these are the conditions that we see most of and that people do really well with once they're tested. And we have great success rates with these specific conditions. Now let's talk about gluten real quick. Obviously, it's a pretty popular subject these days. I mean, there are entire sections of grocery stores that are completely gluten-free. So obviously, a lot of people struggle with gluten. Now, the word gluten actually means glue. It's a sticky protein that's very difficult to digest, very tough to break down. So it oftentimes just kills your energy. And it's estimated that 40% of the entire country is gluten intolerant or sensitive to gluten. So this means, generally speaking, that you have pizza, you crash. You have spaghetti, you crash. You have lasagna, you crash. In other words, heavy gluten type foods really cause problems for these type of people, about 40%. Now, gluten is found in what? Wheat, barley, rye, oats. So when we test, if we see a big spike to wheat, barley, rye, oats, guess what? Yeah, we got to go gluten-free. Now, here's the other thing you need to know about gluten. If you're one of these 40% who are intolerant to gluten, what gluten does, it destroys your small intestine. It destroys the villi in your small intestine. Your small intestine is where you absorb all of your nutrients. So then you become nutrient deficient in the B vitamins, magnesium, calcium, and it's the deficiencies that lead to over 200 conditions and symptoms deep. 200 conditions linking back to being gluten sensitive or intolerant to gluten. Does that make sense? So again, is it a good idea to be tested? Absolutely. Now, does this mean you have celiac disease? No, celiac is less than 1%. That's an autoimmune condition. And you'll know if you have celiac. I mean, these people can't even use the same pots and pans as other people. So I hope this slide was helpful in kind of explaining gluten and how it can really impact your health. Here I just wanted to show you, an example of what a sample test would look like. Now, this is only half of the test, but you can get the main idea. So you can see this person, she reacted to dairy, specifically milk, whey, yogurt, and cottage cheese. And then you can see she also reacted to eggs, which we see a lot of. For some reason, a lot of people react to eggs. It's probably more than 50%. And then at the bottom, you can see the scale and how it's scaled out from very low to moderate to high, very high, and extremely high. So it's all graphed out depending how bad you react to these foods. All right, but now you're probably thinking, okay, what's my next step? How do I get tested? Well, step one, just call the office and set up a free consultation. We can do it in person at our Apple Valley Clinic, or we could do it over the phone if you're far away. We can do a phone consult. Okay. By the way, you can do this test no matter where you live. You don't have to come to our clinic to get tested. We test people all over the country, and what happens is that we send you your test kit. You take this test kit to your own lab. They'll do the test on you. They'll send it off to our lab for the analysis, and then within 7 to 10 days, we'll get the test results back, and from there, then we'll do another phone consult. We'll email you the report, and we'll do what's called a report of findings, where we go all over all the findings, all the foods, and then we basically customize your master food list, and then you're good to go. Now, this is another question that we get a lot of, and this is the question of, will I ever need to retest? And the answer is, it's not a bad idea. Here's the thing, your body's constantly changing and healing and regenerating and adapting. Just because you're sensitive to almonds today doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever. So remember, this is just a snapshot in time. It's kind of like an x-ray. Now, your x-rays are going to be different next year than they are today. So we recommend retesting every 6 to 9 months or so, and then changing up your food list as needed. And then adding back things that you maybe were sensitive to before, but now you're not. So just add some things back in. That makes sense? So again, is it mandatory? No, but it's not a bad idea. And it's not a bad idea just to even test once a year for just health and wellness purposes and for preventative purposes. This is what I do. I test once a year just to see how my body is reacting to various foods. All right, I want to thank you for your time today. I hope you learned some new things about functional food testing and how it can really impact and transform your health. Also, if you know anybody who is struggling with health challenges and they need to watch this webinar, just please pass this webinar along. Our mission is to really educate and empower people today to change the world tomorrow. We live in a really sick society that is degenerating at a rapid rate, and people really need to be tested, really need to know this information. So please pass this webinar along. This is my wife and 2 kids. You can see here from the pictures, my daughter Micaiah and son Jonas. So I just wanted to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. He who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything. Thanks again for watching.